Everybody to Getting Organized and Staying That Way, age-appropriate strategies for each grade level. My name is Ann Dolin. I'm the president and founder of Educational Connections Tutoring and Test Prep. And today I have with me my special guest, Jan Rowe. Jan, welcome.
Hi.
You know, for many years as a classroom teacher in Fairfax County Public Schools, I saw the impact of organization. And I noticed that it wasn't just good enough to be smart and to get by, but it was really the factor of organization and study habits that really differentiated good students from great students. So that's what we're going to talk about today is how we can get our kids organized, even if we have difficulty with organization ourselves. So the good news, I have Jan with me, and Jan is an amazing person. She's a former teacher as well, and now she works for us doing all of our staff development for our tutors, and she is a tutor herself. So Jan, welcome. If you could share a little bit with everybody about your background, and then we'll get started.
Okay, yes. So before coming to Educational Connections, I was a classroom teacher for 13 years. I taught mostly middle school math, a little bit of elementary. Absolutely love being a classroom teacher and started tutoring with Educational Connections. And now I am a full-time tutor and absolutely love working with all our families in our area.
Great, thanks, Jan. And so this is going to be about a 25-30-minute presentation followed by a Q&A. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A box. If you could post all your questions there, we'll answer them as we go. And then at the end, we'll save some extra time for your questions. All right, Jan, I'm turning it over to you.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite topics. I absolutely love organization. So at the beginning of the school year, kids from kindergarten all the way up to college students, even adults, they are super excited about starting school. They love getting their supplies. They love showing me how they've set everything up. And so what I like to do is I like being able to help them stay organized and keep that excitement all through the school year, and then showing them how successful they can be if they just tweak a few little things during the year. So what I'm going to start with is these are questions that I get from kids all the time whenever I'm working with them. So I get there and they will say to me, now I hear my mom and dad, they're always saying, you know, get organized, stay organized. And they'll say, I don't really even know what that means. What does it mean to be organized? And so I explained to them that organization means being able to keep track of your materials, being able to know when a test is coming up, what the dates are, and then also being able to keep your information or your notes and your math work organized in your notebooks. So all of that is involved with organization. And then they'll say, well, why do I need to be organized? Eventually, I always find everything I need. And so I will let them know that, that organization is a critical skill that they need to have so that they can be successful in the higher grades. And then very important for them to be organized whenever they get into college. And that's the area, that's the years that they need to be more independent and be able to be extremely organized. That will help them be more prepared and work more efficiently. And then the final question that's very popular with kids is, and how is this going to help me? And so this is a very important question for kids. And so I explained to them that being organized helps you feel less anxious about maybe projects coming up or tests coming up. It also helps you with confidence. And we know that whenever kids are feeling more confident, then they tend to do much better on tests. So if that doesn't get them, then when I let them know being more organized helps save them time later on, and they can spend more time doing things that they enjoy doing and that they love to do. And so that's the ding, ding, ding. Then they, okay, I will try this. So these are some of the top questions that I get from kids. All right, now before I go into some of the little pieces of information today, I want to just review habit and top habits of college students. We did have a webinar on this, but I do want to just touch on it because it's so important whenever you are trying to establish your organization skills and keep them for the rest of the school year. So a habit is, and we have three pieces to a habit. You have a cue, a routine, and a reward. And so whenever, and I'll give you an example. So let's say that your child has finished school and right when they finish school, usually they want to have a little snack. Right after they have that snack, that's the cue that triggers them. Okay, it's time for me to start my homework. And that would be the routine. And then the reward, you want it to be an internal reward. Oh, I have my homework done. So I can do whatever, I can play with my friends. I can watch a program. So you want that to be the reward. If not, you might need to come up with another reward system. So these organization skills that we're going to talk about today, you want to attach to the habit formation pieces. All right, and then real quick before we start, also the 5 habits of top college students. And the first 3 are ones that we're going to address today, which is planning ahead, dividing up tasks into manageable chunks of time through their week or while they're preparing for a test or a project, and then also being able to manage their surroundings and have all the materials that they need. Okay, so now we're going to start with something that we call the launch pad. This is something that's a great way for kids to stay organized and have all their things at home. I also want to bring your attention to right up here, underneath the skill, I have the grade levels that I would suggest that can do this. It depends on your child. And if you feel like your child's not ready for this particular skill, then I would model this skill until you feel like they're ready. All right, so this skill, I feel at all grade levels that I've worked with have been able to follow through with this skill. And the launch pad is a place in your home where your child puts all of their things. All right, so, and I have a few pictures of some of the launch pads that are in some of the homes. So it can be at the front door, it can be at the garage, it can be in their room. But since we're going to be doing, it looks like most of the school districts are going to be 100% online this year, their launch pad might be at the corner of the kitchen. Because that's where they're going to be doing their schoolwork, or in the corner of a room where they're going to be set up for their classes. So having a launch pad is a place where they can put all of their things inside their backpack and that they can be ready for that day. And we suggest that they have their launch pad set up the night before. And so that's the place where they put their binder, their folders, all the materials that they're going to need for the next day. All right, so now I'm going to talk to you about school supplies. Now, I know that most of the districts will be online, and I suggest that if it's possible to go ahead and do everything as if you were going to be going to school, and they will be doing the same thing through online classes. So getting the supplies, getting everything set up, and following through with organization skills. So these are some supplies that I have found that have been extremely helpful. But anything that your child does that you feel is successful for them, please use those supplies. But I'll discuss with you a couple of the things that I found that help kids with organization. And the first one is the homework folder. This is, again, for all grade levels, starting as early as possible and through the college students that we work with, is having one folder that has things that they have to work on and things that they have complete. And that's if they're getting paper copies. A little bit later in the presentation, we'll talk about the electronic items. But the first one is the plastic folder, and you get that at Target. And these particular ones are like $2.25 right now. But if you can get the ones with the 3-hole punch, if they want to move it to a binder, they can do that. But the reason that I really love these is because they last the whole entire school year, or even the next school year. These are very durable and the kids can keep them all year. They have added an extra little cover onto these folders now, that has a plastic cover where they can put their schedule at the top. So that makes it really nice for them. So that's one item. Now, I also want to talk to you about the binder. Now, I have seen a move from the original type binders, the traditional binders, to these types of binders. You can get it at Staples. You can get all varieties. You can get them online, but it's the accordion, just an accordion binder. And I've seen kids of all grade levels using this now. It is much smaller and easier to get into their backpacks. But you can see that they put their classes in here, and they're able to put their 70-sheet notebooks for each grade level. And it keeps them nicely organized. Right now it is at Staples for about $8.99 if you would like to go to Staples and get those. And I suggest getting at least a 70-sheet notebook for each class, and they can keep that in the binder. Now, the other couple of things I want to talk about is their pencil pouch, or the items that they use. A lot of kids, especially at the beginning of the year, they want to put every single new item that they get. But I would suggest that they have a place at home that they keep things, and then they just put what they need, maybe 1 or 2 extras in there, because then that pencil pouch, a flat one, will also fit in that binder. All right, and then the last item I'd like to discuss right here is the planner. Now, the planner, if your child uses the online planner, that is fantastic, because we know that we're getting to where everything's online. But if your child still wants to use the traditional planner, which I do, then they can get some great planners online on Amazon. And I've had quite a few parents asking me about this. I know because of the school year starting off virtual, they won't be able to get their planners from school, but you can go to Amazon, you can pick the one that's perfect for your child. And so they're about $12 to $15, but you can Google and put in elementary student planner on Amazon, middle school student planner, or high school student planner, and that will give you those grade levels. And so then you can have your child look at it and see how they want their monthly and their daily calendar set up. All right, so that's a wonderful item for you to have. All right, so those are some supplies that I would suggest if you haven't gotten your supplies yet, that might be helpful. All right, and then as we're talking about supplies, I'd also like to touch on home supplies. Our home supplies, whenever your child is getting ready to start working on homework, then we also need to have some supplies at home. And what I suggest with my students is that they just have another little supply box, or they can get a little caddy. They can even use a gallon Ziploc bag. So something where they can keep their supplies portable at home. So if they have to move from the kitchen table one day and move to the living room, or they have to move to an office area, they can just take their supplies or their portable supplies from one room to the next room, and they have everything together. So they're not having to go and get each piece at separate times when they're doing their homework. So these are the popular things that I've suggested with students for their homework. Now, if you have more than one child, then I would suggest you having one set up for every child. And then they just write their name on their box or their little caddy that they have. So one is set up for every child in the family. All right, and then before I leave this, I want to talk about one of the items on there, which is the erasable highlighter. Okay, this is awesome. These you can get at the grocery store. but the ones that are my favorite are the ones that you order online, Crayola, and they are where you can, for kids that like to highlight, which is great for kids that are reading and they want to highlight as they go along, but you can also erase the highlighting. So whenever you're finished, you can go back and erase. You can get a box of 12, but they will use them if they like the highlighting features. So I always ask the kids to get the erasable highlighters. All right. So, the one item down here, if you can see the index card, I ask kids to put into their home supplies, and that is where they have their websites that they have to go to. Usually at the beginning of the school year, they forget what websites they need to go to, or they forget passwords. If they are using multiple devices in the home and they don't have the password set up on the other devices, it's a good idea to have an index card that has all of that already set up, and then they can just retrieve that and be able to get right on, and there's no downtime when they're working on their homework. Okay. All right, so now we're going to talk about when it's time to start homework. All right, so right whenever they finish their classes, and let's say they're online, they finish their classes, they have a little snack, and then they are ready to start their homework assignments. So what I suggest with kids, these are the two most popular ways to do this. I suggest that they plan before they start their homework. This tends to take 5 minutes. It does not take very long for them to do this. And the more they do it, the faster they get at this. Now, if you have your child does write in a planner or keeps an electronic planner, then they will have most of this already done. So then it'll be super easy and quick for them to plan before they start their homework. So what we are discussing here is that they have a little plan before they start and a list of things that they need to do, get accomplished. So I also suggest what I have found is kids that are in 3rd grade tend to be able to follow through with this skill. But if you feel like your child's just not ready yet, modeling this will help them so much for the next school year. All right, so these are the popular ways to do it. One is, and I get the lined Post-its for them. And then another way is just a small dry erase board. And then what I work with kids, I just say, let's pick our favorite colors, maybe have them go and pick out their favorite colors so that they can do this. The more they do it, and hopefully every day they do this, it becomes a habit and something that they will do for the rest of their life as they're planning their activities for the day. All right, so as you can see on the Post-it, I have them put the date and the items, but the key here is that they don't have multiple Post-its. I only want them to have one Post-it a day. So they write their items down. If they finish it, cross it off, all right, and then they can set up the next Post-it for the next day, but then they want to always throw away the Post-it. So they only have one Post-it a day, so not keeping those Post-its. All right, so the dry erase is excellent because they can write their assignments down, write things that they need to get done, and then they just erase them. And it's just a sense of accomplishment, like it is on the Post-it, to be able to cross it off that you have it done. So on the dry erase, they could just erase it. Now, the one really good thing about the dry erase is that if they didn't get it done, it stays on the dry erase, and then the next day, they can just write down the new assignments. And so then they always have a running list of what they need to work on. All right, so they can pick which way they like to do that. All right. All right, so I also want to talk about homework time. So whenever your child is sitting down to get homework accomplished, we want to have their materials, all those little supplies, and they have those ready for them. And then they also need to have their homework folder, which we call the homework folder we talked about just a little bit earlier, their binder, if they're going to use the binder, the accordion binder, or a binder that they, the traditional binder, and then paper. So if your child works with a tutor, these are some things that the tutor would like for them to have, so that they can have all the materials right before they start. Right. So what I suggest as they are working with all these materials, first they have their homework folder. And if they have printed off things that they need to do, would be right here. And then once they get it done, it can be transferred over to the done side. Now, once they have it done, and maybe it was checked or it was electronically taken a picture of and sent to the teacher, then they need to hole punch that and put it into the binder, or put it into the accordion binder. And what students have used with the accordion binders is they use a little binder clip, and once it goes into the binder clip, then they know that they have it done in the accordion binder. And so whenever I'm working with students, I let them know that the homework folder, your goal is to always have your homework folder empty, because that means you have everything done. So the faster you can get it, when you get it done and you get it sent to your teacher or submitted the way that you need to get it submitted, and then you immediately want to put it into your binder. So it's always being put from your homework folder, which is the first stage, and then sent to one of your binders. And then that means it's done, and you have it in one of those binders for safekeeping if you need to use it again. Now, before I move away from this, we also talk about organization of your notebook. All right. And so kids, whenever they are taking notes or they're doing their math homework, that can get a little unorganized. And so it's hard for kids to go back and find what they did or what they worked on. So what I suggest on their notebook paper is that they are drawing a line down the center. So if they're working on math problems, what I ask them to do is draw a line down the center of their notebook, and they work the problems, and then every time they get two done, they draw another line. And so they're always working in little organized boxes. And for the other subjects, science, social studies, English, same thing. As they are working on their assignments, they work in little boxes. So they do their first question and then draw a line, and then make sure everything is always labeled with the date, the page number, and the problem numbers. And so that keeps everything organized. And again, this is something that is, it's not something that's done overnight. It's a process. It's a habit that you have to do over and over and over again. But the more they do it, the easier it becomes, and they are going to be so organized whenever they're preparing for a test or going away to college. So they will know how to set up their notes and set up their assignments. All right, now I want to talk about electronics, the electronic files. All right, and I know you've heard this question. I say this question all the time. Where did it go? I can't find it. So this is something that's becoming more and more of an issue because of more items that we're working on inside the computer. So with Google Classroom and some of the platforms that you're working on with the school system, they tend to be able to locate those immediately because it's so nicely organized. They can click on their own files. But if you are working on they're working on their own programs on their computer or laptop, if they're working in a file, then they need to start organizing and learning how to organize those files on the computer. And so what I have here is if they can have one folder, or if you have a family, you have some you have 3 or 4 children in your family, then have one file that has school on it. And then when you open it up, it has the kids' names on their files. All right. And so then they can, every time they do anything, it's dropped into their own file. And then if they can eventually start organizing that file into different files. So for example, one file for the family, it's the schoolwork. Then you have a file for each child. And then each child will have files that have each subject on there. So, but I've had several students that we start this process, and it is a huge help to just have one file that they have on the desktop that they can put all their items into. And so then they know to go there, and then they can find all of their files that they need. So this is, again, something that's a habit that they have to start doing, because we know that when we save, it will immediately go to some place. And if they're not really watching where it's going, then you're going to lose it. So going through that process and practicing is going to help them keep things organized on the computer. I also want to bring your attention, I saw this, and I am going to be looking into this for myself. It is a folder maker, and you can start color coding some of the files on your computer. And so that might be helpful whenever you have a family, when you have family with 4 or 5 members that have files on one computer. And so it can be color coded, and they'll know where their items are. Okay. All right, so a week ahead. So what I want to talk about here is when you're working with kids and even adults, one day is a bit too short. One day is a bit too short. A month is a bit too long to actually think about and plan out in your head, but a week is just right. So looking at a week is what we want to focus on with our kids. Even that's what I do. I focus on my week ahead. And so if you can sit down, or they can sit down maybe on Sundays and plan out what they have coming up for 1 week. And then they are able to look at the week and see where they have time, where they have extra time. This becomes very important whenever they are preparing for tests, preparing for projects. So if they have a project that's due at the end of the week, where do they have time that they can plan during the week so that they can break those projects into smaller pieces, or prepare for that test in small chunks so that they don't have to prepare everything the night before the test. Okay, so I also suggest a homework plan. This is really a time to sit down and just think about how you're going to get your homework accomplished, how you're going to get it done. And so you can do this verbally, or they can write this down, but to be able to think it through, and then if you are able to, or the student's able to, go ahead and write it into a weekly plan, it really helps them stay organized and on top of what they have coming up. So what I ask them is, when are you going to do your homework each day? And so it would be great if we could say, we're going to do homework at 4 o'clock every day. But that's not reality. We do have things that we have on Mondays that we might not have on Tuesdays or Thursdays. So what I suggest is, okay, let's write down on Mondays, what time do we have, what blocks of time do we have for homework, and then have that into the schedule so that they can see every day that they have planned out for homework. And then also, where are you planning on doing homework? On Mondays, you might be able to do homework in the kitchen, where it's more comfortable for you. But on Tuesdays, somebody might be having a music lesson on Tuesdays. So you might have to go to another space. So having that already planned out is so helpful whenever you're trying to make sure you're staying, you're trying to keep to your schedule. How are you going to stay free of distractions? So let's say you love to work in the living room, but you're going to be working in the living room at a time that a lot of dogs are going to be walked and your dog might be barking. So that might not be the best area for you that particular day. So trying to come up with ways that are going to keep you from being distracted per day and per time period that you're working on your homework. And then also the last question that we discuss is, how are we going to know what assignments to accomplish that day? And if you're able to follow through with the let's plan our homework, 5 minutes before you start, then you're always going to have a list and you're always going to be prepared for what you need to get done that particular day. Okay, and I put this out here because this is something I love to do over the summer. It's getting kids just thinking about how to set up a monthly calendar. Again, the monthly calendar is not something that you keep in your mind all the time, but it is something that you can look at a glance if you know something is coming up. Let's say a teacher says, okay, we have a project that's going to be due in 2 weeks. They can take a look at their monthly calendar and say, oh, okay, we have these things going on. I have this practice for these days. I'm going to really need to get a lot of that project done this week. But they're able to look at the calendar, the monthly calendar, and just get an idea of what the next week or the next week looks like. And if you have your own family activities that you can do just for a practice over maybe for August, that's going to be extremely helpful for the school year. And then doing this at the beginning of every month is going to, again, help them, in the higher grades. And then also whenever they're ready to go to college. So it'll be something that they do as a habit before they get to college. Right. And then the last thing that I want to cover before we take questions is time management. This is a skill that helps estimate how much time we have to complete a task and where we're going to spend our time. A lot of kids that I work with, they have a little bit of difficulty with time management. And I want to bring your attention to the time timer. You can get these on Amazon. They have some really cool ones now with a dry erase board. So that would come in handy for planning if you want to plan on a dry erase. But having kids understand how much time it takes them to complete a task. So over the summer is a great time for them to practice this. And so and I make it a game. Okay, so let's try reading this page. How long do you think it'll take to read this page? And answer questions. Oh, I think it'll take this amount of time. Well, let's do it and then see how much time it took and how close we can get. And then I also try to throw in some fun activities also. How long do you think it'll take you to do this or do that? And then they estimate and we just make it a little game. And it really helps kids and adults be able to determine how much or how long it takes to complete a task. Attention span, I do want to touch on attention span. Attention span for kids, let's say under 10, tends to be their age plus 2 minutes. There's a lot of research on this, but that tends to be the consistent amount of time. So if they are 7, their attention span is around 9 to 10 minutes. When they get to be about 12, 13, it tends to double. So it'd be, so if they're about 13, it's about 25 minutes, all the way up till 18 to 20. And then it tends to be about 40 minutes, and that's even adults. So we tend to be able to stay on task when we get older for about 40 minutes. Now, for younger kids, and depending on your child, it tends to be their age plus 2 when they're younger, but then it also tends to be 3 separate tasks that they're doing. They can do the same topic. They can, be working on math, but 3 separate ones per hour. And that's how we as tutors try to structure our time with our students, is working on it based on their age plus 2, but then putting 3 tasks in there and having little 1 to 2 minute breaks in between. All right, so if you can practice some of these activities with them, then that will help them be able to apply it to their homework assignments and get a better idea of how to structure their week based on how much time they have to spend per project or preparing for a test. Okay, so I hope some of these skills are going to be able to help you, and I'm going to open it up to questions to see if there's anything that I didn't address that maybe I can help you out with.
Jan, thank you. That was terrific. I love the the new time timer with the whiteboard. That's very cool. I haven't seen that before.
Yes.
I love the homework chart. I just love the idea of getting kids prepared instead of like, it's homework time, but just taking a few minutes for that preparation is huge, because when kids know what to expect, they're far more likely to comply. All right, so a couple questions.
Okay.
One just asked about what you said, and she said, what is age plus 2? So age plus 2, and I've also heard age plus 1, is really the amount of attention span kids can really focus without their attention and motivation waning. So for example, if you have a 10-year-old, it might be 12 minutes that we can expect them to really focus in. Generally, kids can focus a little bit longer, some a little bit shorter, but that's an easy way to wrap your head around it. So often as parents, we say to our kids, go up and read in your room for an hour. And that's often unrealistic. And that's why we go up, after 30 minutes and they're playing with Legos or they're doing something else, because their brain can't process that much time at one time. So the first question, Jan, is Mom says, we have a similar launch pad, but we don't have bulletin boards above their backpacks. And I'd like to know what you use those for.
Okay, so great question. So the bulletin boards above, what families use is they have the list of everything that the kids are needing to either get before they can go off to school. So it's their schedule basically. So when they put the bulletin boards up there, they have, okay, in the morning, these are the tasks that I need to get completed. And then the kids will check those off. What families have done is they have laminated these. And so they've put the tasks there, and so then they can check them off and then erase them every day. So then the kids can feel more independent, more responsible. And so it works extremely well for quite a few families being able to keep track of it, and then the kids being able to do it on their own. And so they use that for the bulletin board. They've also used the bulletin board for maybe additional things that they have to turn into school, things like that, so that they can keep track of it on the bulletin board. But one of the main focuses there is the kids are being more responsible and more independent with that bulletin board.
Yes, I love that idea, Jan. And I like it especially because it's a visual. And for a lot of kids, you might say, okay, for hockey practice, don't forget, your helmet, your pads, and your skates. But when we say that to kids verbally, it's in one ear and out the other. But
Right.
a visual is so much more powerful. So to your point, that bulletin board, if we post those 3 things, it also saves us from having to tell them over and over, don't forget these 3 things.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads us to the next question, because this mom asks, can a cue be a verbal one? A verbal reminder provided by the parent, such as, because you had talked about cues with habits,
Yeah.
Jan,
Yeah.
such as time to do your homework, or please pick up your clothes now before you go outside. Could those be cues that you're talking about?
They absolutely can be cues. Anything that triggers to start a task. So that's definitely something that you can do. I would probably try to move to something that's more the student sets up. Either the student can set up a timer on their phone at the same time that you think it's time for them to do their homework, so that they can take more independence or take more responsibility and be more independent. But absolutely, when you're trying to get them into a habit, that can be a cue that, okay, my mom says it's time to do this. But as we get older, we want them to be able to be more independent and be more responsible. So being able to let them choose, what their cue is going to be is going to help them whenever they get into the higher grades and especially into college. But yes, anything that triggers them to start a task is a cue. So that's exactly right.
Great, thanks, Jan. Another mom asks, do you have any specific ideas or strategies for kids with attentional challenges?
So with the skills that we've discussed, I don't start off and teach five skills at one time. So whenever they're having attention issues or having trouble with the attention, then I'm going to start off with a task. And then we just start off in small steps. and then we build on it as we go. So that's how I would start with organization, with pieces. Now, the attention is if the parent can say, is the attention based on doing homework? If it's working on homework and their attention span is low, then I would just, let's say they have attention span of maybe 10 minutes, then I would probably cut it down to 8 minutes of what I'm doing, and then have a little break, because I want to go 1 minute to 2 minutes under that attention span, because then I'm going to get, they're going to be extremely engaged in that period of time. So I covered 2 things, if they were talking about skills or if they were talking about their homework. I hope I answered that question.
Yes, thanks, Jan. So basically, you want to lower the bar a little bit to make sure that kids can be successful with the task presented to them.
Yes.
Got it. That makes complete sense. As much as we can build up our kids' abilities to get something done and be successful with it, that's a huge win for them. All right, so we don't have any other questions. I will wrap it up here. Any final thoughts that you would like to share?
I absolutely love this topic, and it is such a delight to see kids whenever they are really excited about it at the beginning of the school year, and they can keep that excitement all through the school year. And then they are so excited whenever these habits that they have used through the school year they're successful with it. They're like, oh my goodness, I was able to turn all of my homework in. I was able to get prepared 2 days early, and I got the highest grade I've ever gotten on my test. So that is just a wonderful thing to hear kids saying, and it's, just tweaking a few little things that it goes a long way. So I hope everybody has a wonderful school year and their kids can stay excited about organization.
Great. Thank you, Jan. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And if you need help, if your child needs help with organization or time management this school year, we would love to help them, even if their work is online. We offer both in-home now and virtual help for executive functioning skills. And we consider executive functioning skills as organization, time management, and study habits. So if we can help your child, reach out to Jan at EC Tutoring, or me, Ann, ANN, at ectutoring.com. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your summer and a terrific school year. Take care, and bye-bye.